everybody. Welcome in to A Glitch in the Matrix. I'm your host, Jessica Jones, and I have another fantastic show lined up for us today. I have my friend Dennis Carroll in the studio today, and he is always a delight to have on the show. We've got some interesting things to talk about, and it's going to be super creepy. So I hope you guys are ready. Go get your popcorn, okay? Because we've got some interesting things to talk about today. But before we start, I would love for you guys to go visit my website if you'd like to follow with everything that I'm doing, all of my shows, my events that I'm going to be at. I'm actually going to be gone next week, okay? I may have a show. I may try to do a show here on Wednesday, but I'm heading out to Las Vegas. We've got the Las Vegas Spaced Out Radio fan party that I'm going to be broadcasting live from on Saturday. I believe that's May, what is that, the 20th, I guess? I'm going to be broadcasting live from there for my show that day with some really interesting VIP guests that we've got lined up to be there. So I hope you guys will hang out there. Come follow us. Maybe come see me. I don't know. We're going to be live and direct in Las Vegas at the Golden Nugget. Okay. And then I'm flying out to Grafton, Illinois. I'm going to be presenting at the Journey to Truth Conference, May the 22nd through the 25th. Let me put this up on the ticker down there so y'all can see it. And so I'm going to be there, and we've got remote viewers that are going to be there, secret space program folks, you name it. It's like cryptid people, whatever. It's gonna be a great time, okay? And so y'all can come see me there. And then of course we've got the second annual Paranormal Roundtable Dogman Conference coming up. That's going to be Labor Day weekend out in Fort Worth, Texas. So y'all also come see me there, okay? All right. Oh, if you'd like to support what I'm doing here in my show, excuse me, you guys are welcome to join my Patreon. That's the Cryptid Huntress. Over on Patreon. Sorry, it's something in my throat. Okay. And also, I have a shop. It's called War Woman Goods. That's over on Etsy. I want to give a huge shout out to everybody who's been throwing their support my way and buying jewelry out of my shop and things like that. It really does help what I'm doing. It's keeping me going over here. That's my fundraiser. Okay. So yeah, y'all please go check out War Woman Goods over on Etsy and on my website. Okay. Awesome. We have a fantastic show. Okay, it was brought to my attention that our government, some agencies, were very interested in demonology and looking into demonology. And with all of these remote viewing targets that I've been doing for my remote viewing shows on Thursday, I started seeing that there's a lot of demonic stuff going on. Okay, there's a lot of demonic stuff going on. These portals that I'm looking into, Dogman, a lot of these targets have something demonic going on in them. And so it's interesting that our government is wanting to study demonology. And so I have Dennis Carroll here with me today to talk about cryptids and demonic entities and demonology and how it's all related to our government in some way. Okay, well, oh, and aliens. Y'all, some people say that aliens are demons, right? So we're going to get deep into this today. It's really, really interesting. Okay, so Dennis Carroll has over 40 years of experience in the field of the paranormal. He studied, researched, and investigated many aspects pertaining to the paranormal and the supernatural. He's a researcher and investigator of the occult, which is perfect for today. He's a well-known author on folklore, legends, superstitions, cryptozoology, and the occult. Okay, we're going to get into this now. Please help me welcome to the show my friend Dennis Carroll.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Dennis.
How you doing?
I'm excellent. I am so good. I'm feeling good today, and I'm happy to have you here because we're going to have a discussion that's right up your alley. Because I've been hearing you talk about demonology now for a little while.
Yeah, well, that's a dark, usually a dark subject, and I warn people that when you start talking about the demonic, you can expect some interference sometimes. Hopefully, we don't have any today. But it seems like that whenever we, kind of step on the toes of the demonic, they don't like it at all. And I've had a lot of experience with that. And they sort of want to impede the truth, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it's a very fascinating subject, demonology. I've been involved in it for well over well, going on 55 plus years now, and it never gets old, and it's very interesting. No, Jessica, people do not understand that these forces are very, very real, and if you don't know what you're dealing with, they can be very dangerous. And I
Yeah.
don't say that to kind of spook people. I always tell you how you can handle these things. There's a way you can handle them and safeguard yourself. But you've got to realize, just like playing with a rattlesnake, if you play with it long enough, you will eventually get bitten. So that's just the way, you can't blame the snake because that's the way the snake is. But you got to be very aware of what you're dealing with, definitely.
Wow. Well, and a lot of times when you're dealing with demonic forces, you don't know what you're dealing with because they're tricksters. Am I correct on that?
And here's another thing, Jessica. They are very well organized, and there are. I could sit here till this time tomorrow telling you the different type demons and what they have. You have demons of suicide. You have guardian demons. You have demons of magic. You have of sexual perversion. You have demons of addiction. The list goes
Wow.
on and on and on and on. They all have their when you're dealing. Here's what I say: it's sort of like dealing with a medical specialist. When you deal with demons, they all have their own little different jobs that they do, and here's the bad part: they really take pride in their work. Definitely.
Ooh. Oh my gosh. Well, I wanted to bring this up right off the bat because I thought this was a really interesting subject. I had a guest on my show one day, Mike from Abnormal Investigations came on my show, and we were talking about Dogman. Okay, and Dogman being flesh and blood and flesh and bone versus supernatural. Now, I believe that they're both. Okay, I believe they've got supernatural elements to them. Some of them do, and they're also flesh and bone. And he's definitely in the flesh and bone camp. Now, what he did say is that he believes that they're not just like supernatural beings inherently, but they are used as vessels for demons to inhabit and to make them cause all
Exactly.
of this death and destruction. What do you say about that?
I agree with that. Really, I've seen evidence that points to that, even to the uses of Sasquatch and other type of cryptids by the demonic. Let me say this about the demonic: they're all about image. They use imagery, and if it's frightening and negative energy imagery, that's what they want to do. And that what could be more frightening than to run into something that looks like Dogman? I mean,
Yeah.
I've never seen him, but I don't really want to meet him right offhand in the wrong circumstances. But I have seen Sasquatch. I know he's real. But the interesting thing about this, and I'm gonna give you a quick example. You
Okay.
remember Slender Man? I think there was a case where there was a murder committed. I think because of Slender Man. Well, Slender Man was
Yeah.
an actual entity that was created on Creepypasta, which was a website that was, sort of let your imagination go wild kind of a thing. And he was created on it by that. So a lot of people began to believe this. They talked about it. They put pictures up of him, supposed photos, and they made all this stuff up to the point it became almost like a tulpa. It became almost a living thing. And the demonic took notice of this, Jessica. And I can
Uh
guarantee
huh.
you right now that they use that image. Now, there is a Slender Man now. You might as well say there is
Yeah.
there does exist a Slender Man because it's now a demonic image that they use,
Ooh.
they put forth.
So it's been
And if they
conjured
can
up,
do that,
manifested.
if they can do that with Slender Man, they can do that with anything else. And here's the interesting thing. I'll say this about Dogman, and I've pulled over thousands of case history sightings and all this. I've traced him back as far back as I can go. It's not just a modern day thing. It goes back centuries. But the
Yeah.
interesting thing about Dogman, he does have supernatural attributes to a certain extent. Although he is, I think, flesh and blood as well.
Yeah.
But he has those supernatural aspects to him. And
Yeah.
that is exactly what the demonic likes to utilize, something like that. So you
Something
can be
so
sure of it. And
ferocious.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to paint it with a broad brush and say every sighting is demonic. I'm not going to say that, but I'll say you've got that possibility when you run
Okay.
into that certain type of entity. Yeah.
Okay, so that leads me to another point or another question for you, Dennis. Um, I have done shows on human cloning, okay, and those get really high views, okay. Like a lot of people watch those shows on my cloning shows that I do with the human resets, the orphan trains, the incubator babies, the Cabbage Patch. Okay, well, it's not a secret that there are human cloning factories all over the place. Okay, it's just a reality. There are really human cloning factories. One is called CloneAid. I believe it's based in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if humans are able to reproduce other human bodies, okay, what consciousness apparently, from what I've read and what I've seen, they say that consciousness can be transferred into another body and something like that. Well, how do you think that it's possible? And I think it is, but do you think it's possible that, like, perhaps governments or agencies or someone else is using those bodies, those clones, to put demonic entities into?
Well, here's the interesting thing, and we hear so much about AI, and I've been studying it a lot lately. Matter of fact, I do a show every Sunday night at 9 o'clock on it's called Demonology Today, and I've been doing a series on there. And my next show is actually going to be a lot about this. I've already had one show about it, but here's the interesting thing about this cloning and all this. I call it the God game. That's what they're playing. These people who are in league with these dark forces, they're very rich and they're very powerful. And money is power, and power is money. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And they are looking for their own type of immortality. If you're going to be a god, which is what they want to be like gods. All demons won't have a god complex, by the way. I'm going to put it that way. If you,
so they're narcissists.
I told somebody not long ago, I would love to write a book on just the psychoanalysis of a demon. Okay, what they think is wild, but they actually have a god complex. They want to be worshipped. They want to replace the true creator of the universe with themselves. That's what it's all about, and they want you to do that too. That's how they operate. And if they can get you on this thing where let's say if you've got plenty of money, power, you're in league with these dark forces, you want to live forever. What's the perfect way to do that? There's two ways. You can either clone yourself, and if you're cloned, Jessica, when something goes wrong, like you need another kidney or liver, you've got your own clone there. You can use that. You can essentially live forever like that. You keep replacing the parts and all. But if eventually it all were to die down, then you can go the second way, and that is to create a robot with AI and download you into that robot.
Yeah.
You will live forever. But here's the interesting point, and nobody can answer this, okay? Will you still have a soul?
I don't think so. That's my question. I've always questioned that. They're soulless beings, and that's something else that's come up in my remote viewing data. Sometimes when there's an attack on someone, or like, for instance, the hikers that died at Dyatlov Pass, okay, in Russia, in the Ural Mountains in 1959, the last 4 bodies that were found, they seem to have been mutilated, like UFO alien style, okay? And when I did what we call a deep mind probe on each of them, and particularly the woman who had her tongue removed, okay, she told me that they were attacked, they were confronted by soulless beings, is what she said. Soulless beings. And sometimes I equate that with aliens. But these days, we've got a lot of soulless beings walking around this planet right now.
Exactly. I've said that before, Jessica, and I stand by this statement. I know without a doubt that there are out there walking among mankind things that look human that aren't really human at all. And there are, more unfortunately, being in law enforcement, I can tell you this for sure, there are some people walking around that once were human, but are no longer human anymore. So you got that factor to consider with this thing. And here's another thing about the soul. And demons do have souls because they are spiritual entities, but they don't have souls like you and I would possibly have on that level, because their souls are so corrupted, so dark and evil and negative, that they have completely destroyed the very root and heart of their souls. They are no longer really soulful beings like you and I are. So you could say that they are soulless in that respect. Um, so that's the interesting thing about the demonic. And I think that's one reason why they want to inhabit us so much on that basis, to form that connection with us and live that way through us, because they no longer can feel what you and I can feel as human beings. And they want that. They yearn. It's almost an addiction to them in that respect.
Okay, so Dennis, I've noticed there are a lot of celebrities that claim to have sold their soul to the devil. And there's one in particular, there's these two twins, and they've got these tattoos all over their faces and crazy hair, and there's something about an island boy or something. I don't know. I don't know who they are. I've just seen people kind of making fun of these poor guys. And one of them, I saw a video, and he had claimed to have just sold his soul about a week ago. And he said that he felt like he had to, and instead of like they have to sacrifice somebody, apparently, instead of sacrificing another person, he claimed to have sacrificed himself. And I believe this fella has a new baby or something, because I saw that too. And don't ask me what I'm doing looking at videos about this stuff, y'all. But it's for research purposes only, okay? But this poor guy, he was completely. He said that he had not been happy since he did it. There was not 1 ounce of happiness in his body anymore, no matter what he did. It's making me kind of sad thinking about it right now. But he had no soul.
You brought up earlier, there is such a thing as demonic murder.
Okay.
It's rare. It is kind of rare, because most of the time demons are insidious cowards. They would rather get you to do their work for them, get you to kill yourself and destroy you that way. But there are cases of demonic murder, and here's the interesting thing what I wanted to bring up right quick. Usually when someone is killed by the demonic, the head is completely twisted around, looking back over the back of the body, and they will be mutilated. The demons desecrate, kind of like that, yes ma'am. And demons desecrate the body after they kill that. So that's sort of a form of mutilation kind of thing going on. So when I see that, that kind of sets some signals off for me. That shows me there was direct demonic influence in that situation.
Wow. I mean, how often does this happen with the heads getting turned around? Okay, see, because I've heard about this. I was actually asked to remote view a double homicide out of Brown Springs, Oklahoma, by Tex from Texas Front Porch. I actually did a show. Well, I didn't do a show about that. I had Tex and Rob on, and Rob's in the chat today. Hey, Rob, BMR, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, and they came on my show, and I surprised Tex with my remote viewing data that day on my show, and he's. It was suspected that a dog man had done that to the couple. It was a couple. The woman was brutalized. The man was torn to shreds, and his head was twisted. I think his head was twisted off, actually. And I did not pick up on a dog man. I picked up on satanic rituals. Okay?
Well,
I picked up on satanic
I
rituals.
believe part of it. I believe you put your finger right on it, because there is a history in witchcraft, dark witchcraft, and satanic ritualization, where they bring forth these entities, and they could look like dogmen, they could look like wolves, they can look like giant black cats. The phantom black cats, I believe, are a strong tie in there. You have all these different imagery that is used by the demonic. I mentioned to you about the Grimoires. And the interesting thing about all the Grimoires, and they're all really basically tied together, that the Vatican, of course, has that one that I told you about. It's one of the worst. It's supposed to be actually the prototype of the Necromonicon. You ever heard of that? The Necromonicon really does not exist. Okay, it was made up by H.P. Lovecraft, but he got the idea for it somewhere. All writers get their ideas from somewhere. And he, I think, got it from this Grimoire that we were talking about. It's supposed to be hidden by. But the main thing, the focus of the Grimoire, the reason I bring it up, and that's like the Key of Solomon and the Lesser Key of Solomon. That's where most of them are tied to. are really based on one thing, and that is to raise demons, connect with demonic power. And that's what that's all about. And once you open the door to these forces, Jessica, and that's why I believe CERN is involved in a lot of this governmental type stuff. I believe CERN has actually cracked open the door to hell, because since CERN has got started, there has been a dramatic rise and increase of paranormal activity in this world that I have never seen before on scale like we're seeing today. And there's a reason for that. You know, everything has a reason behind it, and there's a definite reason for that. And I believe CERN may be responsible. And there are other CERNs out there that we don't know about. There are other same kind of programs that are being secretively done that we don't know about. And that's where the government comes in too on that. And that's why I think, and you know, I mentioned this to you before, and I was approached as well. A lot of demonologists were approached by the government not long ago with a question. Okay. And I'm not going to go elaborate into my sources on this or what, because I really can't talk about it. It would get some people in some bad situations. But I can tell you exactly what questions they wanted to know, and I will give you the answer. Yeah. I'll give you the answer. The question was, who is the most powerful prince of hell?
Satan.
Okay,
right?
That's an interesting question. And here's what struck me as strange about this. Was this a sort of a tryout kind of a question to see if I knew what I was talking about? Or was this a legitimate question?
Right.
That kind of that's still open to today. The jury's still out on that. I'm not sure about it. But I gave them the answer. And the answer is this. There are 7 princes of hell. And supposedly they each one fall in the categories of the 7 deadly sins. But there is a hierarchy of the princes. It is a holy, unholy trinity. And here they are. There is Satan, or Lucifer as his name may be, and Beelzebub, and then the third one, and this is the most interesting one, Astaroth. Now, that's the only time I'm going to say their names. I don't like to speak their names, because it gets their attention. He is the bitty bad guy, and I'll tell you why. He is sort of over the corruption of government.
Oh wow! Well, he must be working overtime.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So, but here's the question I was left with. You know, you get a question out of a question. Why do they want to know that? That's disturbing. Why do they want to know that? You know, have they awoken?
There's a lot of reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, have they awoken something they should have left sleeping, or have they opened the door to something?
I didn't think about that with CERN and all of these rituals that they're doing, because that when they open up CERN, when they turn that on, they do rituals the night before, and even when they opened it or did the grand opening of it. Do you remember the festivities that they had? They had like a parade. It was they had Pan was there. Pan, and it was very paganistic, and it was really interesting. It really could go.
If you look at the symbol of CERN.
It's got 666 on it. It
3
does.
6s, and it's also another symbol. It is a symbol of a whirlwind, and that goes back to biblical saying that God actually said that about the wicked, you will reap the whirlwind. Everything you do is going to come to nothing in the end. And so I find this symbolism, and I'm going to tell you something about symbolism, Jessica. It's very important, especially in the dark arts and in the satanic purposes. They're big on symbolism, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And that set off some more red signals for me, you know? Definitely.
Oh, yeah. We all know the little eye symbol with the thing going over there. I'm not going to do it. I don't want people screenshotting and saying I'm part of it, because I'm sure not. Okay.
That goes back to the Eye of Horus. The Eye of Horus and ancient Egypt. And, you know, that's the black arts that we know today, and we could do another show on that completely by itself. The black arts we know today is a conglomeration of all of these cultures, not just one culture. It's an unholy kind of a alliance between these things, and so they use the symbolism interchangeably between these different cultures and societies. It's fascinating, definitely.
It is, and it's the people that are on television all the time. It's almost as though the people, like I mentioned, Hollywood or famous people, rappers, whoever's selling their souls. We all see the pictures. Even was it Buzz Aldrin? I can't remember if he was whoever was on that Apollo 11 flight, because I was doing my show on that before I got kind of warned not to talk about it. But he even has that little finger symbol over his eye and all that kind of stuff. So it's people in every branch of entertainment to government to whatever. They're throwing up hand gestures and stuff like that. That is letting everybody know what they're doing, where they are. It's almost as though you go to a concert, they throw up these hand symbols, and it's putting a spell on everybody in the audience, right? Am I imagining things, or am I right?
Well, I've often said that evil does things that you can tell it. I'll tell you what this is. Evil eventually is self-destructive in itself, by the way. But eventually, if you give it enough time, it will expose its own self. And I think that's what you're seeing here. It's come to the point where they're really not even trying to hide it anymore.
Right. You know? That's right. And these celebrities are bragging about selling their souls to the devil. It's almost a badge of honor.
I've been approached by that a lot. People have come to me. I've had some very interesting cases on that where people say, Mr. Carroll, I sold my soul to the devil so many years ago. Is there any hope for me? Can I get out of this? I said, sure. You can break any contract, even if it is signed in blood. But your soul is your own, but you can't really sell it. It's not like it's on the market for so minutes, for that. Your soul can only be given away, in other words.
Free will.
By whatever side you decide to go with that, in the eternal conflict of good and evil. You can sell your soul that way. You go over to the dark side, as they say in Star Wars. You go over to that dark side and become part of that, then you're sold out. That's it. There may be a way for you to come back, but I'm going to say this, and I hate to say it, but there are very, very, very few cases where they ever come back past that point of no return.
Wow. Okay, you made a great point on free will. Yeah, okay. So that's something else that I saw the other day. I was watching a video, it came up in my feed, a video of a gentleman talking about how the elites get away without getting karma. Okay, it's because they're doing all these, people can do horrific things to us and enslave humanity in some way, but we agree to it, whether subconsciously or flat out disagreeing to it, maybe not knowing what we're agreeing to. The enslavement of humanity, basically from the time we're born, from signing our child's birth certificate over to the state and the federal government, to whatever, signing a contract of some sort to allow these companies to spy on us through our cell phones. These contracts.
Yeah. We do it willingly, and that's what they want. See, they don't want you to fight. They don't want you to resist. They want you to do it and make you. Here's the insidious part. They want you to think you're okay with it. You think it's a good idea. That's the way they work. And they say, "Hey, that's cool. I want to do that." And that's the way they want to get you. And here's what I've said before, Jessica. This influence in the world, whether it is man-based or demonic-based, or a combination, which I say, of both, is constantly influencing us, pounding us day after day in every aspect, not in the media, in schools, in church, even in churches, and the seats of knowledge and power in this world, are constantly pounding this influence in us. It's going to eventually take a toll on us, and we become desensitized to these things. That's what they want.
Well, we've gone along with it because we've been entranced by celebrities out there flashing their symbols, their occult symbols and things like that. We're all in a daze. Not all of us, not everybody, okay, but a lot of people are. The masses are.
Some of us have our eyes open. That's why I tell people, please open your spiritual eyes. See what is really going on, this darkness that's going on around you, and wake up. It's time to wake up and realize what's going on and what they're doing to you. They're coming, Jessica, they're not just coming for you. They're coming for your children. They're coming for the souls of your children and what will be your grandchildren one day. They're coming for those, not just your soul. And that's bad enough when you do that to grown-ups, but when you go after kids But I'm gonna tell you, that's the number one thing in the rituals and the Grimoires and all this other stuff that's all combined, is that corruption of innocence. That's what they look for. They want to do that, and that's why they use children so much in these rituals. I've seen this with my own eyes. That is a big part of their ritual, is the destruction of the innocence of not only animals but children as well. We've lost our innocence when we get older. They're not as attracted to that as much as they are to the younger, and that's why you have so much of this pedophile stuff going on and all these other things. It's all tied in together because that's part of the ritualistic dealings of the Satanic Church.
Wow. Well, my question to you now is, what do you think about aliens being demons? And could that be, here's another part of the question, could that be part of the reason the government is wanting to study demonology? Because perhaps aliens could be demons?
I believe without a doubt our government is in bed with the demonic. And this is what I say in my book, The Road Unseen. And I said this statement: we have already been invaded by aliens. They have formed a beachhead thousands of years ago on this planet. Although we know them by another name, they're not bug-eyed aliens from Alpha Centauri. They are fallen angels. And if you go back and look at the actual real, you gotta get these images of Hollywood out of your mind here, okay? If you go back and look at the description of real angelic beings, Jessica, they do not look human at all. Okay, they are my pick for number one aliens. Okay, because they are so far out. Their feathers, their eyes, they're not human looking. Although they can look human when they need to, because all supernatural beings. Here's an interesting thing you always need to know: all supernatural beings, whoever or whatever they may be, can have one thing in common: they can all shapeshift. I've seen that with my own eyes. Yeah. When you come up to something that shapeshifts, you're talking about a supernatural being.
Okay, so that is an interesting point. And it reminds me of something that I experienced in my life personally. Well, first of all, I have had contact with ETs up close and personal twice that I remember. And I question what those things were. Okay, of course, in my mind, I think that they're, when it happened, I'm thinking they're like from outer space. These are some weird little green aliens from outer space.
Well, right? It is. The angels are from outer space. Yeah, they're from somewhere else. They're not natives to this planet. They are aliens.
They are aliens. Okay, but the way I look at them is a little bit different now, because there are a lot of people who believe that they are demons, and so
there's the reptilians. The reptilians are my pick. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I've encountered two different types of aliens up close. One will look more like an insectoid type, and the other two were grays, apparently. Okay, but okay, let me. I'm kind of skipping over to another topic from that. Okay, so I have encountered in my personal life, I would say, a demonic entity jumping from person to person. Okay, and attacking me, and it being from like one loved one to the next, or one friend to the next, or whatever. But it was the same. I could tell it was the same spirit, the same entity. When one person couldn't get close to me, it would jump into the next person to come at me. And it was almost like that movie, I think it's called Fallen, with Denzel Washington. I've seen that in my real life before. And so I do believe that entities can go from person to person and try to attack you.
And here's one other thing you got to consider, Jessica, and this is going to blow your mind, okay? When you think about the ramifications of what I'm about to say, the demonic, operate as a network. When you deal with one demon, you deal with them all, because they're sort of like one mind. They're so cohesive together. They're like one entity, although there may be untold millions of them. I don't know. Nobody really knows how many, what we're dealing with. The enemy has a lot of dark secrecy about him, but we do know this, that they have a network. I've run into that, just like you say you have. I've run into that from place to place over distance and time. That you still run into the same one, and he knows more about you than the other ones would know. You're dealing with a network. So when you face one, you face them all.
Wow. A legion of demons, basically. That's terrifying. It's terrifying. But, okay, we have a very interesting question in the chat today. Let's see. How would we know? This is from Christine, 1972 Murphy. How would we know if a demon is in disguise, or a demon in disguise is standing next to us, Dennis? How would we know?
Here's the interesting thing, and I've talked about this before. We were all given, I say it's a God-given gift, and God gives us many gifts. I believe that without a doubt. Our creators trying to look out for us. One of your gifts is that moral compass, that women call it intuition. It's that feeling you get when you know that something's watching you, and the hair on the back of your neck kind of goes up on the back of your hand. You get that kind of tingly feeling. You need to pay attention to these things, because that's that compass inside of you, that soul, that part of your soul that's speaking to you. Hey, there's something not right here. There's something that's bothering me. There's something I'm very sensitive to, and you need to explore that when that happens. Okay, but you will, if you are standing there, and I've had this happen to my own self. That's why I'm saying this. I have been close to people possessed by demonic entities, and you get that vibration like off of them. You get sort of that feeling. It's kind of hard to describe it, but once you feel it,
Right.
you know it. You'll always recognize it. Pay attention to that, please, because that's a warning signal. And here's another thing. If you are around someone who is under the influence, whatever stage it may be, and there are different stages here, whatever stage of demonic influence they are under, there will be certain signs like paranormal activity and aversion to religious things. All these different signs. I have in my other book, Beyond the Shadows, I have a list. I've had people come up, Jessica. So I've got number 3, 4, 7, and 8. Am I possessed? No, not necessarily. But if you have an overabundance of these signs, and you might start thinking, something's going on. But I'm going to tell you one more thing, okay? And people need to understand this, and I'm trying not to spook our audience today, but people listening to us, please realize this. You're not just walking down the street and bam, all of a sudden you get possessed. It don't work that way. You, and you alone, have to open that door to these entities, which way you go about it, through addiction or your lifestyle or even alcohol, drugs, all these different ways can open this door to the demonic, and that invites them in. It's bad enough, this is what I say, Jessica, it's bad enough to have to face your enemy, but then to let him in your house while you're doing it, it's not a good idea.
No. Or not knowing that you might be married to one, too. I'm just going to put that out there. I don't know. Some people may have experienced that. Okay, so we have a question in the chat from Lurks a Lot. Do we know how many demons there are? Because it seems people call everything they don't understand or scares them a demon. Is there a finite number?
In the Bible, the demoniac in the Bible, he said, "What is your name?" If you get the name of a demon, then they're rarely ever going to give you their old name, because if you get their name, you have power over them. But he said, we are legion. Well, we are many, and you're talking about like maybe 6,000. Think about that, 6,000 demons in one person. That's awful to think about. We do not know. There's an untold number. I would, my own self, knowing what I know, put it in the millions. Maybe even billions, because we got to remember exactly what these beings were at the very beginning of all this. They were the watchers, and their job they were the supervisors of the universe. And my friend, it is a big universe out there, okay? And it would have taken untold billions of supervisors to regulate this universe. Universes, there may be more than one. So you're looking at a vast number, a very vast number of things, I think.
That's a big number. Now, Joshua Keith in the chat, he says cosmic demonic entities utilize the reptilian and grave vessels to interact with people in our 3D reality, which lines up kind of what we're saying.
Looking back through history and the civilizations and the different cultures and all that, and I've always been big on sociology and all this, you see that representation over and over and over and over again of reptilian or lizard-like looking beings. You got to ask yourself one question: why? Why is it showing up in every different part of the world? Because what you're seeing when you look at reptilians are the actual true image of what these things look like now, what they have become. This is their true form, I think, to a certain extent, and it's very hard for them to hide that. You know, you see a lot of these videos where the eyes turn, you know, and
The pupils.
and all this.
Yeah.
And I don't doubt that some of that's not real, because I have actually seen that happen, Jessica, right in front of my eyes. I've seen a person's face distort to the point where they didn't even look human anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you know, so that's what you're dealing with, I think.
That's interesting. Well, what about when a person, because we do have something called a werewolf out there, and I've watched lectures from Bill Schnoebelen, I think is how you pronounce his last name. I talk about this all the time. He was part of the Brotherhood of Satan, with the Church of Satan, and he gives a lecture where he talks about once you reach a certain level in the Brotherhood of Satan, you can become a vampire or a werewolf. And I have to say, like, I've heard stories of people transforming into werewolves, okay, and their bones cracking and their faces getting distorted, and, you know, same as potentially like a skinwalker type of a thing.
That is very true. You're talking about a European equivalent of a skinwalker, actually. That's basically what you're. And it is a dark matter. That's why I've gotten into discussions with people on this. A werewolf is not a true cryptid. It is a supernatural being. It once was a man or a woman. It could be either one. But that they have changed, that shape-shifting thing that I told you about earlier is taking place. That's what's going on. And that is one of the powers that people seek from the demonic, by the way, is that ability to shape-shift and to become. Let me draw your attention to the Viking berserkers. Okay?
Oh, okay.
There are two kinds of berserkers. There were the bear berserkers. They wore the skins of a bear. And then there were the werewolf berserkers. They wore the skins of wolves. These men would, of course, they would take drugs to do this too. But they would go around the campfire, think these thoughts, think nothing but smell the wolf smell or the bear smell. They would become these animals. I mean, in their mind, they would become these animals till almost the transformation was complete. And they became what they wanted to become. And they said on the battlefield they were terrible to go up against, because you weren't dealing with men anymore. You were dealing with animals. They weren't men. They weren't people anymore. And let me tell you this: in Africa, you have the leopard men, you have the ape men, you have the ones that turn into tigers and lion men. They actually wear these pelts. They wear the claws for weapons. They go out and murder people with these things. They become, in their mind, those animals. So how much closer can that imagery get to when you believe that that is what you are? You can take on the attributes of that, definitely.
Yeah. It sounds like a Marvel film to me, like Wolverine and stuff in there, doesn't it? Yeah, but it also, I mean, I don't know why I'm making this connection, but like with martial arts, you know, a lot of the moves, like you become the animal, like if you're doing kung fu or karate or whatever, you become the snake or the swan or, you know, or the crane. I watched Karate Kid. I know a little bit. I'm just kidding.
Well, you know, when I was in martial arts, for many years. They would teach us. Our teachers would say, you know, to break this piece of wood with your hand, you've got to see on the other side of that piece of wood. You got to disregard the surface of that wood and put your hand to the other side. In other words, it was more of a mind over matter kind of thing. And I think a lot of these martial arts, they become almost cultish in that respect. They want you to become that animal in your mind, to take on its attributes, like the tiger or whatever the case may be. If I was going to be one, I'd want to be the tiger, I think. But that's it's a mind game. It's that mind over matter kind of thing, you know.
That's right. Well, and then we also have alleged, let's just say alleged, okay, our military taking special forces soldiers voluntarily, from what I've heard, and injecting them with animal DNA, and some kind of making these like almost like a chimera, like a part human, part bear, part human, part wolf or dog, and dropping them off all around. And we've got my zombie bear incident that I talk about with the East Tennessee.
Well, those
homicides.
berserkers I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
when they killed you on the battlefield, they cut your liver out and eat it.
Ooh. Okay, with some fava
I mean,
beans and a
that
nice
was part of
Chianti.
what they did. They believed that instead of the heart, they believed the liver was actually the center of the soul. They were soul
Really?
eaters, and they would cut your liver out and eat it. And well, some of them would do the heart, I think, but I think it was the liver was the main one. I was going to answer this. There's a strong relationship between demons and AIs. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to make this statement right here today, and it's I will stand behind it 100%. The AI has already been infected by the demonic, my friends.
Joshua Keith had just said that. I had that up. I was actually going to go back to that in just a minute, but he says, Joshua says there's a strong relationship between demons and AI as well. They're called the archons in Gnostic literature.
Archons.
Now, I do believe that some of us do get, we call them, it's like the AI gnomes or whatever, the gremlins that get in our systems and it messes our shows up sometimes. I'm joking about that, but it's a real thing. And some of the heads of these big tech companies, they say that they take like microdoses of certain hallucinogenic drugs so they can go connect with these, I guess you can call them demons or whatever kind of alien, interdimensional beings these things are. And they give them information and stuff. So who knows? I believe it.
Well, there are different hierarchies of the demonic, and the archons are part of it. There are different echelons of these things. Like they have a pecking order, or whatever you want to call it. But like I said, I want to tell you something about the demonic, and what makes them so utterly dangerous. Like I said earlier about that network, they are so well organized. They are better organized than any government, any corporation, any military on this planet. These guys have got it down pat. I'm going to tell you something and it was the only one thing I could admire about the Nazi regime, is their organization capabilities. They were highly organized, and more so than we were in certain aspects in World War II. And that gave them a leading edge on us in many ways. We were lucky that we got to where we got with them. But organization truly is the key to success, especially with the demonic.
Wow. Well, okay, getting back a little bit on the technology, perhaps potentially being demonic in some way, I believe that our television sets are portals. Computer screens, I believe that our technology, it's almost like a portal for demons to travel into your home, and I've always said that. And so that's why if you pay attention to the shows that are being put out on television these days, it's kind of corrupted or something. I guess that's the word I could use. With a lot of murders, homicides, serial killer shows, ghost shows with a lot of demonic entities.
That influence is pounding us constantly, and
It is.
not just us, our children and everybody is under this constant influence, this tidal wave of demonic influence. And here's the interesting thing, Jessica, why I believe AI is infected. I know it's already infected because mankind made this, and mankind is infected by the demonic. That's just the way it goes. But here's the interesting thing. I have actually had cases where people became addicted, demonically addicted to video games. I know there was one guy that could not stop. His wife finally said, "I'm taking baby and I'm leaving it and I'm never coming back if you don't quit." And he just ignored her and she left. Okay, come on.
Okay.
I mean, that is a fertile field for the demonic. Okay, you got to look at it that way. And here's the one thing we've got to remember, Jessica. We have doorways to our inner being. They're here. That's the eyes, the nose, the mouth. All of these are the doorways to our soul. And we need to guard those doorways well, very well, because that is where the demonic seeks to get its stronghold.
Oh, wow. Yeah, what's happening right now is that there's a collective consciousness that we all have, and when it is able to be melded, I guess, or it's almost like influenced by the mass media, by people who are elitist, or the famous singers and celebrities. We're able to be controlled by it, totally controlled by it. When they put out the information that they want, we create it. Okay, humanity is able to manifest their reality for them, and right now it seems like their reality is very dark and dreary and destructive. And so that's why I think it's great for us to put information like this out so that we can deprogram. And the thing about it is like, this is not going to change overnight, but the key is waking one person up at a time to what's really going on.
Well, here's what I say. The battle is for our souls, okay? But the battle begins with each one of us. We have to face and fight our own battles against these forces. And we do that with acts of goodness, of kindness, love, and empathy for our fellow human beings, for that consciousness you talked about. It binds us all together as humans, as the race of humanity. And we need to start with each individual, and that's the way we fight back these forces of darkness. That's our number one way. There are other ways, of course. I think people that drink Budweiser found that out. They had the power they didn't know they had. But there are many ways to fight this, but it begins individually, right at home with us, each one of us, proactively against these forces of darkness. And we do it with positivity, with goodness and love and light. That's what's going to keep these forces at bay, if not from the world, from your life. That's where it starts,
That's
one
right.
person at a time.
Yeah, we have to protect ourselves, protect our children from all of this. I'm going to call it smut out there, okay? Just not good stuff. Neil, actually, I agree with you about you feel ill and gross, like whenever there's something that's put out on the internet. I remember when I was in high school, there was a man who had been beheaded, okay? Taken hostage in the Middle East or something, and his head was cut off with a sword or something, and everybody said don't watch it because it'll ruin you. And I gotta say, I think I think I might have watched some of that, and it scarred me for life. Okay, and things like that you should not watch. Okay, and it's your free will. They put it out there. You don't have to watch it, but when you do, it will scar you for the rest of your life. So whatever.
And that's what I said earlier, Jessica. You get that feeling. Pay attention to it. If it doesn't feel right and it makes you depressed and makes you feel bad, there's a reason. And you need to pursue that. You need to say, hey, I don't. If it makes me feel bad, I'm not gonna mess with that. It's where your mindset begins. That's the main thing. Your mindset's against these things. It's just like if you're trying to break a bad habit, okay? Like say if you smoke and you say, I'm not going to smoke anymore, and you put the cigarettes down, but if you keep picking them up, you're never going to quit. You got to, what happens with that is you make a conscious decision and stick with it not to do that anymore. That's how you break bad habits.
Yeah,
and people need to realize that's how you fight the darkness. Yeah, you find it proactively that way,
Yeah, and you have to tune into your intuition.
Let me give you a quick tidbit, since you put that picture up of the Exorcist. I once talked to William Peter Blatty, who wrote the Exorcist, and of course he's gone now. I didn't talk to him long, but just for a minute. I asked him. I said, "What's the one thing you got out of this?" And he said, "Well, I'll tell you this. When I began to write and research the Exorcist, I was not a believer. He said, at the end, I now believe."
That's how a lot of people are when it comes to a lot of this stuff.
That kind of told me a story there,
Yeah.
That's what happens when you run into evil, absolute evil. And mankind is evil unto itself, Jessica. We know that. We're pretty good at doing our own evil towards each other and our own fellow human beings. But most of the time, we just don't realize it. We're being pushed in a certain direction to do things too. And there can be very, very wrong things that we're getting pushed to do.
Yes. Well, I have those pictures ready to pull up today because, Dennis, you had mentioned when you and I had a conversation in the past. We've had many conversations that are amazing. But you had mentioned that, I think it was you, I'm pretty sure it was. We were talking about how the government had taken some of that furniture from the actual Exorcist, the case that actually happened, not the movie version, and they had it in storage somewhere because they were studying it. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the actual true beginning of the real Exorcist, it was a boy. It was a young boy, and it did begin. And there's a little bit of alluded to this in the movie. It did begin with Ouija board use. That's how it began.
Uh-oh.
And
Okay.
and the boy found a Ouija board in the closet in the basement or something where they lived, and that's where this all began. And I've often said that about every paranormal case that I've ever done. There's always a key, and that was the key to this. That's what opened the door to these things. And here's another thing about the real case, and I've studied a lot about it. A lot of the different cases, like Michelle and Alicia, and all the different cases of demonic possession. I've actually seen people demonically possessed. You feel that when you're in a room with something like that. You can feel that evil. It is just as real as if it were the fog of the air around you itself. Anyway,
Wow.
it took weeks, months to perform the exorcism on this boy. It wasn't just over in a
Oh
couple of
my.
hours. And most exorcisms are not. It takes a long time, and you never do it alone, actually. What you see in this movie, you see only two priests. That would never happen. In real life, there would be a team of priests. Because here's what happens. It's like doing a long-running operation, and I've seen this happen too in hospitals. I worked at a hospital for about 30 years. You see a long running operation, you'll have one doctor, they work a while, then they leave, and another doctor comes in, and it's a handoff, like a relay race kind of a thing. And that's what happens with the priest. The priest gets tired, gets tired, because here's the thing about it, and I've said this before. When you take a hit spiritually, when something comes against you and attacks you spiritually, it drains you physically. I know you probably have experienced this. It drains you psychically and physically. And I've told people a lot of times that when you take a hit like that, it will even drop your blood sugar. I say,
Yeah.
get you a piece of candy or a piece of chocolate to get over it, help you get over, or if you don't have that, maybe a sip of wine or brandy or something to get you to recover from that. Because when you take a spiritual hit, your body does as well, because it's all connected, you know.
Wow. Yeah. I've experienced. I listen. I get spiritually hit pretty often, actually, and so I've had to learn to put up a great barrier. But I also know the importance of keeping my gut healthy, so that I
Yeah.
can have my intuition as high as it can be to be able to fight this stuff off. And I put on the full armor of God every morning when I wake up and before I go to bed at night too. So
And the
I
more and the greatest teacher of all is experience. The more experience you have, the more you learn, from these things, episodes. And that's where life kind of helps you along with that experience. But even some of us, here's the one thing we got to really watch out for. I say this to
okay.
everyone: don't let your guard down, because that one
Right.
time is all it takes.
That's
That
right.
one time, and that's what you got to watch out for.
And they go for your heart space too. So you got to be careful. It's when you're feeling down and your heart's broken over something.
Oh
That's when
yeah.
they really will start attacking. So
Exactly.
stay
They look for
strong.
that weakest. That's the way
Yeah,
the demonic works. They attack that weakest spot.
they
That's what they
do.
look for. And I've said this before. They will. Here's the four things you got to watch out for. They will attack you physically,
Hmm.
spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. Those are the four things. And if you're weaker in one of those, you're not feeling good or something going on in your eye, you've got to watch out for that, because that's what they will exactly make a beeline for. Because they can smell that blood like a shark.
Ooh.
They'll go after you definitely.
Wow. Okay, so Krista's in here from Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. Hey, Krista. She says, I've studied the Exorcist case. This is for you, Dennis. She studied the Exorcist case extensively, and she's been to the original house in St. Louis where they started the exorcism. They moved him
Yeah,
shortly after to Alexian Brothers Hospital.
yeah. I've
Interesting.
seen the room actually. I haven't been there. I've
Oh,
seen the room. I
have you?
think the hospital was eventually torn down, if I'm not mistaken. I would have loved to have went there to see it, but I'm sure there was no residual, I don't think, left over from that. But it's interesting that most of it took place in a hospital and not in a house, you know. But they
Wow.
still had the time. They still had the time to the bed. I think and all that, because here's the thing about it: it not only is going to hurt their self, but they can also injure you. So you have to immobilize them because you can't trust them anymore because there is a entity inside. They're still in there, but they've been overcome and overwhelmed by this entity that is inside them now. There's an invasion.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I have a great point. I don't know if, I mean, to me it sounds like a great point inside my head right now. When I spit it out, it may not be, but when I have remote viewed, let's say for instance the Giant of Kandahar. Okay, now what I saw was the U.S. military sending in special forces troops to go obtain a sample of a giant. Okay, for potentially for cloning purposes. Okay, so imagine, Dennis, if we have all these cloning facilities, we have the technology to clone. We've had this. Humans have had technology to clone for many, many years, apparently, and potentially thousands of years or more. But let's say that they do obtain a sample of a giant, and they are able to use that as a vessel for demonic entities to inhabit.
Uh-huh.
Could that be also why the government is, let's say the government or agencies, whoever it is, are studying demonology? Perhaps.
I think the number one reason why the government, Jessica, is interested in demonology is the fact is that they have contacted certain entities that they now realize are truly demonic. They're in bed with these entities. They've made agreements and contracts with them. And here's the interesting thing: whenever you make a contract with a demonic, or you sell your soul to the devil, so to speak, you sell over to his side, he will always get the long end of the stick. You'll end up with the short end. That's just the way the demonic works. They're never going to let you get one little thing over on them. They're always going to come out on the top of it. The way that smelling like a rose, as they used to say. Of course, the demons don't smell like a rose, but that's the way they operate. That's the way the contracts run. That's the way the agreements are made. And I believe the government has done that. I believe they have actually. Here's what I hope is not happening. I hope they haven't sold us out, but I've got a bad feeling that they have. And I believe that's got a lot to do. And it could be that at the beginning they thought they were dealing with aliens, like the legends always tell about Eisenhower making agreement. They might have thought they were dealing with aliens and found out that that wasn't really the case. I'm gonna say this. I'll make a bold statement. This is gonna make a lot of people mad, but I think a lot of this, and I've studied this. I did this on my show, Demonology, today. There is a lot of this UFO activity, a lot of this alien stuff, which is becoming a religion, by the way. A lot of this stuff is imagery used by the demonic. Don't be fooled. They want you to believe something that is not necessarily true, and they're going to use this imagery because it plays on your hopes and your dreams for a better tomorrow. It preys on your ability and want to like have the cure for diseases and mankind to pull itself back out. I'm sorry, but that's not what this is all about. That's not the way the demonic truly works. But they use these images to get what they want. They're insidious. They are the most evil, despicable forces that you could ever run into. Nothing is off the table with them. They'll use your child. They'll use your family. They'll use your government against you. Whatever it might be, to get what they want. They don't care. I'm gonna say this: if I could swim with sharks or swim with demons, I'd rather swim with the sharks. At least you know where you stand.
Oof, oof. That's a powerful statement right there. And
Uh-huh.
okay, so talking about contracts with demons, the elite, the people, whoever they are, they have to put things out there. When this circles back to the free will, okay, the free will that we have, that they have to tell us before they do something to us, okay. It basically have to put it out there. Now, back in I believe it was the 1950s during President Eisenhower's presidency, you mentioned Eisenhower making contact with aliens potentially, and making a contract with them. Okay, now that information leaked out People know about that. What if aliens are demons and they just put it out there so that we know that there's a contract that he signed on our behalf of all of humanity to let humans be abducted? But they're demons.
That is the forbidden fruit, my dear. That is what they've always tempted mankind with. Let us give you knowledge and you can be like gods. And that had to be the selling point for our government. If you let us in, if you open the door and let us in, we'll give you some technology that'll blow your mind.
Right.
We will do things for you. It's all part of the magic, okay? It's all part of the plan. It's part of the scheme. They give mankind a little bit of that knowledge and let him run with it, just like AI. Great thing. It may cure diseases. It may do something, but it won't end up that way because everything we get a hold of, we are imperfect creatures. Everything we have is imperfect, and it will never turn out for the good. Look at nuclear fusion and power. It first started out as a bomb to destroy people. We weaponize everything that we get, especially the government does that. I was reading the other day where they're actually training rats to set off landmines. They go out in the fields and set off landmines. They weaponize dolphins and whales. Don't think they wouldn't weaponize Dogman or Sasquatch if they get a hold of it. Come on, yeah.
Or giants.
They weaponize everything. Yeah, there's an office of weaponization in the United States government, and it's called IRS, by the way. But they weaponize everything, okay? That's just the way the government works. And if these aliens, demons, whatever their real imagery is, came up and say, hey, we're going to give you some technology. You can have faster planes and more ways to kill your fellow man, they would certainly take them up on it.
Yeah, but all you have to do is give us all your humans to probe, right? And because think about how terrifying that is to a lot of people. I've grown up with a lot of high strangeness my entire life surrounding me. I don't get freaked out by it so much. I've never had a horrible experience with alien abductions and things like that. I study it actually. But just think of all the terrifying experiences people have had where they've, been held down by aliens and experimented on, and they can remember these things. It's very dark, and it does seem demonic in a way. But some way, we kind of make it okay in the back of our heads, like, whoa, well, those people that get abducted, we made a contract to get technology, so it's fine, even trade. It's not an even trade. It's horrible.
In my career, I've poured over thousands upon thousands of eyewitness reports, case histories of UFOs, alien abduction. I've interviewed alien abductees and all that. Here's the thing about it. I began to see that there was a darkness, a shadow behind these things. It wasn't what it was appearing to be. And whenever you run into the demonic, you will be struck by the deceptiveness of it. That's how they operate. They're deceptive. They have no truth in them. They're nothing but lies. Although it may, as my grandmother said, they get you to swallow a lie by coating it with a little bit of the truth. That's the way the evil works.
Right, a little sugar on it, right?
Yeah. Get you to swallow it. And think it's okay. You say, oh yeah, that's like the placebo. They do a test on drugs. They give you a placebo, which is nothing but a sugar pill. And a lot of people get cured by placebos because that's what they think.
It's the power of your mind.
Right? Yeah. And the demonic knows how we think. They know us well. I'm gonna tell you something. Here's the bad part about it. They know us better than we know ourselves.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's true. That's a scary thing. It's just the nature of humanity, though. And it's just becoming aware of all this stuff. So, I think this has been an amazing discussion.
That interesting case you had when you were on that, that Bigfoot hunt, and you had all those weird things that happened with you that time. That kind of told me a story. There was some demonic activity going on there because you had portal activity. You had weird paranormal activity going on. It wasn't just a regular Bigfoot kind of a thing. And you encountered that. I think you realized that you were coming up against some kind of dark force that was going on there. So that's a telltale sign every time.
Okay, and okay, so with the portal incident, our team, we have remote viewed all that and stuff. I didn't know what I was remote viewing at the time. My targets are blind, but we did collectively as a team, we did remote view that incident. I got to tell you, Dennis, I got vibes of this not being some kind of natural portal. It was like almost made by, I don't want to say an agency or government
left
or something, but
behind.
it was something. It was something more sinister feeling, okay, with this portal. So I don't know. Demonic, I don't know. I don't go out in the field feeling like I've got demonic presences around me and things like that.
Let me ask you one
but
question.
I don't know.
Let me ask one question. Was there a cemetery or graveyard near the vicinity of that place?
Yeah, there's cemeteries all over the place. Yeah.
Ah.
Yes.
Well, let me
That's
tell
why
you
we
this.
went there,
I've run
actually,
in-
Dennis. That's one of
I've
the
run in-
reasons we went there. Yeah.
I've run
Go
into
ahead.
portals like that. They're usually in cemeteries because rituals are done there, and they open these doors.
Oh,
You got to remember
yeah.
something, Jessica. Dark magic, whatever name you want to give it, witchcraft, whatever name you want to call it. Dark magic is geared to one thing and one thing only: the casting of spells. And the casting of
yeah.
spells is due to the fact of whatever demonic power you can hook up with. And the only way for you to hook up with this demonic power is to open that door to the demonic. And you get things done. And that's what the rituals and everything is geared toward is opening those doorways. And sometimes they never close them. You're supposed to close them when you open them,
Right.
but sometimes they don't. And when they leave places like that, then you have some very strange, unusual animals, cryptid sightings, weird activity that goes on in there. I've seen it time after time after time. It happens. Yeah.
Yes, and I've actually done shows on those, Dennis, and that includes Corpsewood Manor, where my team has investigated more than once, up in northwest Georgia. That place it was all satanic ritual stuff going on up there. But the reason these men built their house, and they were murdered, and their dogs were murdered there, the reason they built their house there, they were actually members of the Church of Satan. I believe that they picked that on purpose. I believe they took Anton LaVey up there actually to help pick out this area because it had so much bloodshed there already. Okay, with the Civil War, the Battle of Chickamauga was right up the road from there, where we have Old Green Eyes, an entity that eats dead corpses up there on the battlefield during the Civil War that's still there today. So the thing that in my remote viewing data for both of those targets that I've done different shows on, that you can find at the Cryptid Huntress, go to my playlist for remote viewing investigations, and you can watch those. But the common things that they had, things in common, were bloodshed rituals, the land there requiring blood. Okay,
Blood. It's all about
yes.
blood. I'll tell you something about that, Jessica. And I've noticed time after time, some of the worst haunted places are hospitals. I worked in one for a while. Hospitals, trauma centers, battlefields, dark and bloody ground. That's what they like, because it's all about the blood. I want to say something about the demonic and blood. As the Bible says, the blood is life. That's very true. That's a very bold statement, and it is true. We know that scientifically. But you were talking about the giants earlier, and we might do a show on that something, because there is a direct connection between that and the Nephilim, and I advise people to do all the research you can on the Nephilim, because it plays a very important part in our future. Okay.
Wow.
But anyway, all of these forces, these dark, evil, negative forces, are drawn to these places of darkness, places of the dead, cemeteries, morgues, funeral homes. All of these places are like magnets to these entities. They look where in the Bible, where was the demoniac at? He was in the cemetery. That's where they go. They go to the places of the dead, the trauma, the pain, the suffering, the darkness. That's what attracts them. That's what they are.
And that's also where ghost investigators go, to mental asylums and things, like Waverly Hills Sanatorium, I think it's in Kentucky or West Virginia. They go places like that because that's where there's a lot of demonic entities there. And Donna, hey Donna's in the chat today. She was wanting to know if you're familiar with a Grim Reaper type being going to get mentally ill patients. She's worked in hospitals, I believe Donna has done security there and things like that. Are you familiar with that? Because I think that would just be another place that they would like to hang out.
like I said, I worked at a hospital, and it was. I had to tell you some things that happened there. It was a very haunted place. But like I say, there's a lot of death, pain, and suffering that goes on in hospitals. Not just the trauma centers, not just the mental facilities. Well, like I said, this is an attraction for these things. But as for that question about the Grim Reaper, I have actually, my own self, my own eyes, have seen the angel of death. Okay, it's something you don't want to see, but you will eventually one day. But I have actually seen it, and it doesn't look like the Grim Reaper that much, by the way. It looks more like what was those things in Harry Potter, the Dementors. It kind
Uh-huh.
of looked more like that. It was flowing. It's something that's not in our world. It's something from some other dimensional type thing. I don't know. It's very hard to describe. But anyway, I wasn't hallucinating. I wasn't under drugs. I wasn't asleep. I saw what I saw. Okay. I mean, there come certain points in your life when you see things you can't deny, and that was one of them. I was near death when I saw it. He was, I
Wow.
think, coming for me, and it wasn't my time. But anyway, these things are real and they are true. There is an angel of death, if you want to call him that. That's his job. He's not a good angel, though. He's not one of the good guys. But he has a bad job. Maybe he gets a bad rep.
Wow.
Aleister Crowley.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think those two guys you mentioned, Corpsewood, were actually disciples of Aleister Crowley,
They
if I'm not
were.
mistaken.
Yeah, Dr.
Yeah.
Charles Scudder and Joseph Odom. Yes.
Let me say this. I'll make a bold statement. This is going to probably make some pagans mad, but this is true. If you do the research, you will find that modern paganism has its roots in Thelema and the Golden Dawn, which were the
Mm-hmm.
founding religions of Aleister Crowley.
Yeah. Yes,
Weird
I've
stuff.
studied Crowley. I've studied Crowley. It's good to study things to understand it. You don't
Mm-hmm.
always have to agree
Yeah.
with everything, but it's interesting to know where all this stuff's coming from, because it
Oh
seems
yeah,
to be so enmeshed in
everything.
pop culture today.
Here's what I tell everybody: the main reason for research is to find the origin of things. You must go back to the beginning to get to the origin, and that tells you the whole story. Once you do, you know.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I think that it's important to learn every aspect of it, the good and the bad, the dark and the light. And speaking of which, I did a quick little remote viewing target for you, and I figured we could end the show with this. You had asked me if I'd ever remote viewed a Grand Grimoire or the Grand Grimoire, and
Yeah.
I was not familiar with it at all, and
Uh-huh.
I didn't get a whole lot of earth shattering information on it, Dennis. But
Well,
tell me a little bit
the
about what this
Grimoires
thing is.
are strange things. They sort of. Here's the interesting thing that might impede your progress on a Grimoire.
Okay.
They're put together by many different people at different times. So it's not just one guy sat down and wrote this thing out and put it out. You know what I'm saying? And that can throw you off certain aspects because you're dealing with so many different ramifications of it there. You know. But I've studied the Grimoires, and really they're very archaic. They're stuff from medieval times and all that. But a lot of the goal of these is just simply to raise demons and open those doorways I'm talking about earlier. That's what the main thrust of the Grimoires are, which makes them somewhat dangerous books to fool around with.
Wow. Well, I think the author of this book is in question, and I got to tell you, the name that kept coming up in my
Uh-huh.
data was Beelzebub. It sounded like Beelzebub or something like that. So is that another name for Satan? Who is Beelzebub exactly, Dennis?
That sounds kind of a demonic type name there
Yeah.
to me.
Okay. I
Very
said
much
his name
like
too many times. Maybe I
Beelzebub.
shouldn't have said that.
Here's the thing about the demons: whenever they give out names,
Okay.
they sort of give out
Now I'm nervous.
acronyms of their names. They don't give their actual name out. By the way,
Okay.
they will never give you that. They may change their name a little bit or make it sound a little bit different. Like I said, they're very deceptive in that respect.
Okay. Well, I don't know what all's in that book, but I was getting that it was made of some sort of skin. I was picking up like human skin and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's weird.
It is.
Okay.
It is bound in human skin, and it has a
Okay.
bookmarker that is a human tongue. By the way.
my gosh. Is this so? It's obviously something real because I was getting a lot of data on whatever this is. I was getting something about ancient entities. It was authored by Beelzebub. Okay, that was who.
That sounds like a demon. Yeah.
And I was picking up on a lot of dog-like entity stuff going on with this. I don't know what that has to do with the book, but a dog-like entity has something to do with this target. And I was getting a duality, something from dark to light and light to dark. I don't know what that is, but it's
that
very.
That would be opening portals. That would be sort of portal activity.
Okay, but it's something about curses and it holds a lot of ancient secrets and ancient knowledge and whatever this is too, that I believe secret societies actually use today. And so it kind of ties into what we're talking about actually. So that's why I figured I'd bring this up today, unless you know that I had remote viewed this, because it has something to do with what a lot of all this negativity that we're experiencing, these negative forces, have some kind of connection to this book, I think. So, or the secrets inside of it. So, interesting stuff.
Well, I think that is why, and like I said, there are many secrets in the Vatican vaults. It would probably blow our minds to find out what's really there. But there's a reason for them putting it there, because it is sort of, if you mess around with it, it is kind of a dangerous book, I would imagine. But here's an interesting thing. I don't know if you know this or not, Jessica, but most of the medieval popes had their own grimoires.
They have their own what? I'm sorry.
They had their own grimoires.
Grimoires?
Most of the medieval popes had their own grimoires.
I'm actually not surprised.
Why is that? What is that? You know?
Well, to me, what I thought a grimoire was a book of spells. Is it not spells? Like that witches use? Spells.
But why would popes have that?
Well, that's a good question because, well, I lump popes in the Vatican. I lump that in with governments. Okay, when I say governments, why would governments be?
They were politicians, actually.
Politicians.
Real popes were.
Right.
Look at the Borgias. You know about the Borgias.
Yeah, well, I've seen this series on HBO. Family.
Yeah, and there were like 2 popes in that family, by the way. The popes were very political, and it would not surprise me, here's my statement, that they would not use black magic to accomplish some of the things they wanted to do too, and that's why they had their own grimoires. And here's the thing about grimoires. They're supposed the original one, the Key of Solomon, and the Lesser Key of Solomon, are the 2 main ones. All the other grimoires get everything from them too, okay? And according to legend, King Solomon, who married many different wives, and he had some pagan wives, supposedly they led him into witchcraft and demonology type stuff. And we're talking about the old demonology, which was concerned with raising demons. And I still have to clarify that to this day. You know, there's 2 different kinds of demonology here. One's a study of it, and one's the actual performance of it. Anyway, they say that Solomon was able to call the demons up to do his bidding, and they are the ones that actually built the temple in Jerusalem. And the agreement between Solomon and the demons was, as long as I live, you have to work on this temple. Okay, that's what Solomon said. And then when I die, then you'll be free. And they were almost finished with the temple, and Solomon died. But he commanded that at his death that he be left standing up with his staff, so that the demons would think he was still alive.
Oh.
And so the head demon, the Beelzebub, I think, came to Solomon at the end and said, "We're finished, we're done, turn us loose." And Solomon fell over dead, and they were all free, and they took off. And that was supposedly the book written by Solomon, was the Grimoire. But actually, like I said, they were written by people all down through the centuries. All different people got together and inserted their own little section in the Grimoires. So it wasn't really Solomon, but he got named for it.
Wow, that is so interesting. Yeah, there's a dark side to everything, and it is part of that duality. You know, the good and evil, dark to light, light to dark, that kind of stuff.
Well, you know, there were alchemists. Yeah. There were alchemists like John Dee and some of the other ones in medieval times that actually they wanted to find the actual language of angels, so that they could call the good angels to do their bidding. which would not have been a good thing to do, really. But that was what they were trying to do, and he was trying to learn the language of angels in order to control the good angels. So John Dee was sort of like a good guy going about it the wrong way. That's kind of an interesting little thing in history about John Dee. But John Dee was very interesting character. He was an alchemist too, and then alchemy has a big role in a lot of this grimoires and stuff. Rituals and stuff.
Well, Dennis, to end this on a good, happy note, with all of the darkness, all the demonic forces that are out in this world feeding off of all of humanity right now, I do believe there's also a lot of light and a lot of good. And I do think that there are people out here that are spreading light and love and exposing it all. And I think that could be potentially why it's so out in the open now, because sunlight is being shed on it finally. And I think that we're waking up to it. And so, especially with you telling us all this amazing information, Dennis, you are a wealth of knowledge, and I am just humbled to have you on the show today and to be able to have this conversation. I think this was a fantastic conversation today, and I hope that you'll come back and join me again, Dennis. And
we need to do a show on the Nephilim, definitely.
Absolutely,
that's a very important subject. Yeah, we'll do that one day.
We'll do that next. We'll do that next time. Dennis, where can people find you? I know you have your own show now, and you are part of William's show as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've been doing rotating the Becoming Monsters, which has been on Friday nights at 10 o'clock, and then every weekend we do the Paranormal Weekend Brew on Saturday and Sunday at 10 a.m. I have my own show now, which is Demonology Today, which is with Grizzly Chris. And it can be found on YouTube every Sunday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And you can get in touch with me through my website, DennisWCarroll.com. And my email, if you need to, talk to me about something or some advice or just want to tell me something that happened to you, whatever. My email is ghostwolfdc@gmail.com. And like I say, I can also be reached through Demonology Today, which has its own email too, and all that stuff. So,
okay.
I'm interested if you got any stories you want to tell me, or any sightings, or just a question. I love questions. There are no stupid questions, only stupid answers.
That's right. That's right. Well, everybody, yeah. This has been amazing, Dennis. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
I enjoyed it.
It is awesome. I actually learned a lot of stuff today too. So, and I want to thank everybody, all my moderators. I know Chiro put your links in here for us, and to your to Nighthawk High Strangeness podcast over to that YouTube channel. So, yes, everybody, please go follow them, like, share, subscribe. And yeah, hit Dennis up for any kind of questions y'all have. And I want to thank everybody for being here today. Y'all, please join me tomorrow night. I have remote viewed Patty from the Patterson Gimlin film. That's going to be a showstopper tomorrow night at 8 p.m. here on the Cryptid Huntress channel. Barry Littleton will be joining me, and we have some pretty interesting information about that incident. That was filmed that day back, I believe it was 1967, if I'm not mistaken. So please join me there. Also, I have Spaced Out Radio this weekend, so y'all join me there as well, 10 p.m. Eastern. Dennis, y'all go watch Dennis, and yeah, I'll see y'all tomorrow night. Dennis, thanks again for being here, and yeah, it's awesome. I hope you guys will lock your doors and sleep with the nightlight on tonight. Okay. All right, Dennis. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye, y'all. Okay.